Galesburg, Illinois, population 33,000, is a city located in western Illinois. Many rail fans know about Galesburg primarily because of the Railroad Days Festival that takes place here every summer. For the train watcher, though, there's much more to Galesburg than just railroad days. With lines branching out of town in 7 directions, Galesburg is a very busy railroad hotspot. Let's pay a visit to this interesting railroad town, as well as sample a little action on the 7 lines running into it. Galesburg is entirely served by lines of the Burlington Northern and Santa Fe Railway, which was the result of the 1995 merger of the Burlington Northern and the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe. The Santa Fe had its one Chicago to Kansas City line running east-west through the northern part of town. The Burlington had its Chicago to Omaha and points west main that cut through the center of town, the main line north to Savannah and the Twin Cities, the Quincy main with trains running to St. Louis and Kansas City, and a branch to Peoria. The Burlington also had a large yard here, as well as a passenger cutoff that bypassed it. Today, all of these lines have been integrated into one railroad, making Galesburg a fascinating place to watch trains. Perhaps the best place to start our Galesburg visit is downtown at the Amtrak station. It is in this area that the Burlington lines all come together. Located here is a small Amtrak station that serves today's passengers with 6 trains daily. Adjacent to the Amtrak station is the Galesburg Railroad Museum with Burlington Route Hudson steam locomotive number 3006, a mail baggage car, and a caboose. There are also other displays such as this wigwag signal and even a baggage car with the once common container of milk waiting to be unloaded. The equipment display pays homage to Burlington Northern predecessor Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy, also known as the Burlington Route or merely the Q. The Burlington had a major presence in Galesburg, and none more so than right here on these very grounds where this fine old passenger station once stood. The Burlington was a major corporate citizen of Galesburg, and the station reflected this. As impressive as this station was, there was another prior attractive station at this site which burned in 1911. Today, only our little museum remains to remind visitors of the once great station facilities that were here. There's quite a bit of activity here at the Amtrak station though, so let's take a look at this part of town first. The first Amtrak train of the day is the Illinois Zephyr, which runs from Quincy to Chicago, arriving just before 8 in the morning. Quite a few passengers get on here for a day in Chicago. The Quincy main comes in from the south, skirting just past the yard, which is south of the depot area. Waiting for the IZ to pass was this train coming in off the Savannah line and heading into the yard. After the Illinois Zephyr passes in the morning, there is no more passenger service until midday, so there is usually a variety of freight action with trains arriving and departing the yard, and yard switching maneuvers which come from the yard. Looking east several blocks down the Burlington tracks, we see an inbound train curving off the Savannah line. We'll get a closer look at this busy junction later in the program. Around noon, within minutes of each other, are the arrival of the California Zephyr from the Bay Area and the Southwest Chief from Los Angeles.
right up. Right here, please. Still right up, thank you.
While there will be 3 westbound passenger trains by the depot and a variety of freights, there's more to see in Galesburg than just the area around the Amtrak station. Just south of the depot is the former Burlington Galesburg yard. Although most freight trains on the old Burlington lines head into the yard, some do indeed bypass it, using the passenger main which heads southwest from the depot. Here we see a westbound where the double track ends a short distance from the depot at Clay, followed a few minutes later by Amtrak's eastbound Southwest Chief about to make its stop at the depot. Much of the traffic going west out of the yard gets to the Burlington Main Line west of town using this double-tracked connector line, sometimes called the Graham Cutoff, which connects with the passenger main at the junction called Graham. Here we see a train of coal empties about to curve onto the westbound former Burlington Main Line. This section of track has become busier since the merger because some trains going to or from the old Santa Fe at Cameron use this stretch as well. We'll see how trains get to the Santa Fe trackage at Cameron a bit later. Galesburg action is of course not confined to the old Burlington. There is also the route of the old Santa Fe. A few miles west of Clay, at the small town of Cameron, the Santa Fe crosses over the Burlington, presenting a constant parade of trains. These views are looking to the west, and we'll come back to this location later to look at the other direction with nice afternoon light behind us. During our visit, the BNSF was doing track work on the Burlington, Maine to Omaha, and we get a nice view of the tamper and spreader in action. Before we move on, let's see some action from this side of the bridge, but the other side of the tracks and the highway. There's a variety of photo angles here in Cameron. The California Zephyr is the star of this part of the Burlington route. Let's see the CZ here in Cameron on a better day, as well as sample some of the other locations on the Ottumwa subdivision in this area. Although not as flashy as the passenger trains, what really pays the bill on this route are the enormous coal trains that BNSF runs east from Wyoming's Powder River Basin. The former Santa Fe trackage is far busier through here than the old queue. We're on the west side of the bridge looking east, where we witness train after train passing by overhead on the Chillicothe subdivision. Before we look at how the former Burlington and Santa Fe routes now connect here at Cameron, let's visit a bit of the old Santa Fe that runs west of here. This is a tremendously busy line, and both freight and passenger trains fly through the Illinois farm country. We're just east of the town of Media at Media Trestle. This 737-foot long bridge crosses Ellison Creek. It's been a favorite of photographers for years. We're back at Cameron, about a quarter-mile east of the Over-Under, where we see more action on the old Santa Fe. This is near the new connector track built between the two railroads. The operations here at Cameron have changed greatly since the merger. One of the first changes after the consolidation was this connecting track between the Q and the Santa Fe. This short connector allows trains from either line, going in any direction, to connect with the other line, also in any direction. Here we see the westbound Southwest Chief climbing the grade before curving west onto the old Santa Fe. For reference, the road crossing the camera is at is the same one in the windmill shot that we've just seen. Although the connector is used twice daily by the Chief, there's a lot of freight action on this short route. Here we see a train just out of the Galesburg yard that is currently heading west on the Burlington, but will use the connector to head east on the Santa Fe. One problem that trains using the connector run into is trying to find an empty slot on the busy Chillicothe subdivision. Before the freight train has even cleared the connector, we see the approaching eastbound chief, which is entering the connector just as the freight cleared. Talk about tight dispatching. For our last view of the connector, we'll move back up to the old Santa Fe, where we see a freight coming off of the Burlington and eastbound onto the Santa Fe. Let's leave Cameron and head east, following the Chillicothe sub. Our first stop is the former Santa Fe passenger station. This facility was used by Amtrak until shortly after the merger, but once the Cameron connection was installed, the chief switched to the Burlington and the last passengers boarded here. In 1995, before the merger, we see a Santa Fe westbound passing the still open station. This station was built in 1964, replacing this fine-looking old depot. Let's return to the present and follow some trains on the old Santa Fe east through town. One of the unique things about the Santa Fe and Galesburg is that it cuts right through a nice residential area in town. As was mentioned before on the old Burlington line above, this point is the junction called C-Plant with the Barstow subdivision, which is the route to Savannah, and by extension the Twin Cities. Here we're at track level on the old Q and see a northbound leaving Galesburg and then diverging onto the Savannah line. Let's take a side trip and take a brief look at this scenic railroad. We're back in Galesburg at the junction at C Plant, where of course the other line on the old Burlington is the main line to Chicago. As we've seen on the other routes out of town, let's watch some trains outside of Galesburg on what is called the Mendota subdivision. This line has always been a busy passenger line, and here we see the first of 6 passenger trains for the day, the eastbound Illinois Zephyr, followed by a freight, and then Amtrak Southwest Chief, and then the California Zephyr. On occasion, this line also sees steam and other special passenger movements. Here we see Milwaukee Road 484 number 261 returning to Chicago from the Galesburg Railroad Days Festival. For our next stop, we'll pay a visit to the former Santa Fe east of town. Here, the Chili Sub runs through a scenic valley, making for a lovely area to watch trains. We're back on the east side of the over-under, where we see the BNSF putting train after train through town on the old Santa Fe. This Santa Fe unit on the old queue above is actually switching the yard several city blocks away. Let's take a look at the Galesburg yard. Today, the yard is the BNSF's primary facility for Chicago area traffic, with the Burlington's Clyde Yard and the Santa Fe's Corwith Yard, both in Chicago, assuming different roles than in the past. There is a locomotive service facility here where much switching goes on, and some trains snake down the Burlington main as they are made up in the yard. Once located here was a large steam locomotive service center, complete with roundhouses and a coaling tower, as seen in this view looking from north to south. This area is now mostly a vacant field, as we see in this shot taken from the other direction. Even though all the lines into Galesburg are owned by BNSF, one can see a surprising amount of variety from the public sidewalk on the bridge over the yard. This CN train has come down from East Dubuque and will head down the Quincy line as far as Bushnell before taking the Beardstown sub to the southeast. Union Pacific has trackage rights on the BNSF between Kansas City and Chicago and runs several trains through here, like this one on the passenger main. This train coming in off the Mendota sub is passing through what was once the roundhouse area and almost exactly by the location of the old coaling tower. Coming in off of the Peoria sub is Rail America's Toledo, Peoria, and Western, which once interchanged with the Santa Fe in Fort Madison, but now interchanges with today's BNSF here. The Peoria sub leaves the yard just south of the depot off of the Quincy Main. BNSF runs many coal trains through here, but let's instead see a couple shots of the TP&W going down the branch and back to home rails. The last of the Galesburg lines that we will visit is the Brookfield sub, which runs south out of the yard and is also called the Quincy line. This is a very busy line, as trains headed for St. Louis and Kansas City use it, as well as trains headed down toward Paducah, Kentucky on the Beardstown sub, which branches off south of here at Bushnell. This single-track line is a challenge to dispatch. Our next shot is south of Abingdon, where a southbound freight is in the siding for the morning Illinois Zephyr. We're back at the Galesburg Amtrak depot as the evening Illinois Zephyr makes its station stop before heading on down to Quincy. With only two-lane roads most of the way between here and Chicago, this little train is very popular with local residents. In our brief visit, we've seen how busy Galesburg is and how important a location it is in the operations of the BNSF. And for the train watcher, it's a neat place to watch trains. Even though one can see trains day and night in the Galesburg area, sometimes the photographer is in the right place at the right time, as we were at Cameron, and gets a golden sunset to make a perfect end to the visit.